Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are well. Today we will be talking about the situation on the Korean Peninsula. So I do not know how much do you know about Korea.
I know about North Korea,
You know,
Not
thora.
South.
Achha, so she knows about North Korea thora. Aap log, anybody else?
We do know a little bit history about the Korean Peninsula and how it got divided between North and South Korea.
Wonderful. This is the flag of, any idea? This is the flag of North Korea. And what makes you so sure that this is the flag of North Korea?
So well, because this one is South Korean.
This is South Korea, and this is North Korea. But what makes you so sure that this is not?
For communism, I guess.
Star for communism, okay. And this,
Republic.
what does this depict?
It's a Korean Peninsula. The north, the maroon color shows the Soviet occupation and the
Soviet?
It's the
Yes.
Japanese, right?
no
No?
Soviet
Sure,
occupation in the
I
north.
always saw in Japanese cartoons such things. So I have a feeling it has.
Japanese, Chinese. What is this called? Feng Shui? Feng Shui? Feng Shui. Any idea what Feng Shui is? Okay, find out. Okay, this is the flag of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, also known as North Korea, and this is the flag of South Korea, also known as the Republic of Korea. Okay, and find out the symbolism in the flags. The flags tell you a lot of things. That is why I show you flags of all countries. It shows you the aspirations of the people. It tells you about the ideology. It tells you something about the country. Okay, so pay attention to flags and symbols and icons associated with different countries. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Korea. Here, this is the world map. This is China. This is India, Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, and this is Africa, and this is Australia, and somewhere here should be North America, here or here, whichever way you want to look at it. So this is Korea. Seoul is the capital of South Korea. Okay, this is the Korean Peninsula. This is the Arabian Peninsula. So it is surrounded by waters from three sides, and this is the
Surrounded by two.
Korean Peninsula. So it is also surrounded from three sides by water. And any other peninsula that you know about? The Iberian Peninsula. So this is the Korean Peninsula, ladies and gentlemen, Korean Peninsula. And if you look at the world, which place would you categorize this as? If this is Middle East and if this is South Asia, this area. This is located in East Asia or Far East Asia. It extends southwards for about 1,100 kilometers from continental Asia into the Pacific Ocean. So it's extending into the Pacific Ocean. It's surrounded by the Sea of Japan, East Sea to the east, and Yellow Sea, West Sea to the west. So if somebody asks you about the Korean Peninsula, you should know about its basic geography. Sea of Japan towards the east, and Yellow Sea towards the west. Okay, and Seoul is the capital of South Korea, and Pyongyang is the capital of North Korea. Korea Strait connects the two bodies of water. It's here somewhere. And the area including its islands is 220,847 square kilometers, and it is divided at the 38th parallel. So when anybody talks to you about Korean Peninsula, you should know that it is divided on the 38th parallel. 38th parallel, this is a very important line in the political geography. Amen. So this is the Korean Peninsula, and this is the 38th parallel, and this is also referred to as the demilitarized zone. or the DMZ or DMZ if you talk in the Queen's English. If you talk in American Trump's English, you'll call it DMZ. It's the demilitarized zone. Sea of Japan and the Yellow Sea. And the length is 250 kilometers like this, okay? And its width is 4 kilometers. And there is a village of Panmunjom where talks takes place between North and South Korea, and it is located in the DMZ. The DMZ passes through the table. It's like this, and the South Koreans sit on this side and the North Koreans sit on this side. So until the end of World War II, Korea was a single political entity. Okay. In August 1945, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or Soviet Union, declared war on Imperial Japan. Okay. Mark the date, August 1945. Okay. Japan had already been defeated. So the Soviets found it an ideal time to usurp the territory occupied by Japan. Japan had occupied Korean Peninsula. Japan and Korea have ancient animosity. Japan and China also have ancient animosity. So these are the dynamics of this area. So August 1945, Japan surrendered on the 14th of August. That is why Mountbatten chose that date as the Independence Day to grant Pakistan and India independence. And when was the nuclear bomb thrown on Japan?
6th August.
First,
6th and 9th August.
6th and 9th August, okay. So by this time, Japan was already very, very weakened. And so USSR or Soviet Union occupied north of 38th parallel and US forces moved into south. So they were already jostling to take more territory before the Cold War became real, okay? And it was, the Cold War was already breaking out. After the Second World War was over, the Americans and the Russians or the Soviets were already trying to usurp or grab as much land as possible before international treaties or international agreements came into place. So Korea was divided. It was not China that attacked it. It was Soviet Union that attacked and occupied area north of 38th parallel and south of 38th parallel, the US occupied it. So by 1948, as a product of the Cold War between the USSR and the US, Korea was divided into two regions with separate governments. So they already divided it amongst themselves, North Korea and South Korea. They already did it as part of the agreement that how they are going to have their spheres of influence. After the Cold War or during the Cold War, the US and the Soviets divided the world into their spheres of influence, okay? The conflict escalated into open warfare when North Korea forces supported by the Soviet Union and China moved into the south on 25th of June 1950. 25th of June 1950. Main support came from China. In 1953, an armistice agreement ended the Korean War. Armistice is ceasefire. It's a ceasefire agreement, armistice. Armistice does not mean peace. It is just cessation of hostilities. That is why we have the line of control. It was earlier called, in Kashmir, it was earlier called the ceasefire line or CFL. So technically, North Korea and South Korea are still at war. It's a temporary ceasefire. After 53, after so many years, it is still a temporary ceasefire. It's an armistice. It's not like that both Koreas have decided to become friends or stop attacking each other, things of that sort. The northern section of the peninsula is governed by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, that is DPRK, while southern portion has been governed by the Republic of Korea, ROK. And when you talk to Koreans, if you call them North Korea or South Korea, you'll see that they will find offense to it. So this was the timeline, Korean War timeline. So again, some repetition. 1945, Korea is divided on the 38th parallel. June 25, 1950. June 25, 1950. June 25, 1950 is the date when the Korean War began. This is the Western literature which says that it was North Korea which invaded South Korea. June 30th, 1950, America joins the war and fights North Korea. So June 30th, just 5 days afterwards. And it is October 25, 1950 that China joins North Korea. So America was already ready. China took its time and attacked American troops. And 1951 to 52, North and South Korea stalemate. So the war kept moving up and down, and it stalemated along the same line, 38th parallel. And July 27, 1953, armistice signed and fighting stopped. So June 25, 1950 to July 27, 1953, nearly 3 years. So again, this is the timeline of the war, and this is how it went up and down, and these are the various arrows which shows you how the American landings took place. Okay. So UN forces for war in Korea. On 25th of June 1950, okay, North Korea invades South Korea. The UN Security Council passed resolution 82, one of the earliest resolutions, 82, which authorized a UN force to assist South Korea, a UN force. So the UN wanted intervention in Korea because the Americans wanted intervention in Korea. So this UN Security Council passes a resolution 82. The UN empowered the US government to select a commander. Why not the Soviets? Why not the government in China? The UN Security Council resolution 82 authorizing the UN force to assist, and they asked the Americans to nominate a commander. Not England, not France, not Turkey, not an American commander to become the head of the UN forces. And this is one of the rare instances when the US actually commanded the UN troops. Usually the UN do not command, the US do not command UN troops, they command their own troops, that they have some, they consider themselves separate from the rest of the countries which make part of the UN. But this was the first instance when Douglas MacArthur was made the Commander-in-Chief of the UN command, and this UN command still exists, while remaining the Supreme Commander Asia Pacific in Japan and commander of the US Armed Forces in Far East. So he was wearing multiple hats. So he was already a sort of a viceroy in Japan. Japan had been defeated, and MacArthur was a person who was a big show-off. He was a big projectionist. He would like to present himself as a warrior and a conqueror, and he had larger ambitions, and he also wanted to become the president of the US at one time. All South Korean forces were also placed under his command. As UN forces retreated before the North Korean onslaught, MacArthur received permission to commit US ground forces. All the first units to arrive could do was trade men and ground for time, falling back to the Busan perimeter. Can we go back? So here this is the Busan perimeter. They went back there. By the end of August, the crisis subsided. North Korean attacks on the perimeter had tapered off, while the North Korean force numbered 88,000 troops. US 8th Army numbered 180,000, so almost 100,000 men more, and had more tanks and artillery pieces. And at this particular moment in history, China was not a big country. China had a primitive military, very primitive military. They had outdated artillery pieces and tanks, and most of their equipment that they had were Soviets or Soviet mock-offs. So this is Douglas MacArthur. He was very fond of publicity, and you will see his pictures, photographs, in which he tried to present himself in the heroic mold. During the Second World War, when the Americans lost a lot of territories in the Pacific, he was the commander in the Pacific, and he made a very famous statement that I shall return. And when he did return, he actually waded ashore from a troop carrier which landed him a few feet before the beaches, and he waded ashore. And he noticed that the cameras had not caught that moment, so he went back again. He said, "You will capture this moment again." So then it was splashed across on the newspapers, "I shall return." He was a big show off. And the American, I think it's all over the world, anybody who wants to have larger ambitions in life, he or she is a show off, he or she is a big actor. So December, Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff General Collins discussed the possible use of nuclear weapons in Korea. So what I wanted to tell you, use of nuclear weapons in Korea with MacArthur, and later asked him for a list of targets in Soviet Union in case it entered the war. So Soviet Union, it was China which was actually fighting, not the Soviet Union. So the Americans toyed with the idea of throwing a nuclear bomb on China or the Soviet Union. In fact, what MacArthur recommended was Chinese target north of the Yalu River. So this was the first nuclear moment, or second nuclear moment, some say, after the first use of nuclear weapons. So what they were thinking actually was throwing the bomb on Chinese targets. In April 1951, the Joint Chiefs of Staff drafted orders from MacArthur authorizing nuclear attacks on Manchuria as in China, and Shantung Peninsula if the Chinese launched airstrikes originating from there against his forces. But they were looking, so they do not take liberties with a country which is already a nuclear power. So they knew China did not have the bomb then. So they were thinking of attacking the Chinese. The next day, President Truman met with the chairman of US Atomic Energy Commission, Gordon Dean, and arranged for the transfer of 9 Mark IV nuclear bombs to military control. So the Mark IV bombs were actually given to the military for possible use. Okay, and this fellow, Gordon Dean, was apprehensive about delegating the decision on how they should be used to MacArthur, who lacked expert technical knowledge of the weapons and their effects. So we know that it is when there is propaganda that Pakistani nuclear weapons are not safe and the Taliban may use it, one main argument is it is not that simple, because you have to mate the warhead with the delivery system, and you must have technical expertise to use the triggering mechanism. So even the Americans were worried that MacArthur or his group of army men or military men did not have the requisite knowledge to use these bombs, use these weapons. The Joint Chiefs were not entirely comfortable about giving them to MacArthur either, for fear that he might prematurely carry out his orders, because he was an impatient person. He was flamboyant, impatient. He thought that he's a hero or something. So they said that the nuclear strike force would report to the Strategic Air Command. At that time, the nuclear bombs were still delivered by aircraft. It was later that missiles were used as delivery means. The bombs which were thrown on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were thrown from flying fortresses, aircraft, bombers. Okay? But when you send in bombers or aircraft, particularly in those times, they were exposed to radiation, they were exposed to hostile enemy fire, because they had to go really close to the target, to the ground zero. The missiles don't have to do that. You have a greater standoff distance. Okay. So MacArthur removed from command. This is also a very interesting event in US history. Within weeks of the Chinese attack, MacArthur was forced to retreat from North Korea. Seoul fell in January 51, and both Truman and MacArthur were forced to contemplate the prospect of abandoning the Korea entirely. So despite the fact that the Chinese were not well equipped, they were lightly armed, they were wearing thin summer uniforms, they had pushed them back. Okay. And so they were worried, despite the bomb, despite all the modern gadgetry that they had at that time, they thought that they might have to abandon South Korea entirely. European countries did not share MacArthur's worldview, distrusted his judgment, and were afraid that he might use his stature and influence with the American public to refocus American policy away from Europe towards Asia. So Europeans are worried that they would lose focus and they would go to Korea. So nations that fought in the Korean War, it's important to understand that many nations sided with the United States of America or the UN in the war. And tomorrow, once history will be written, they will tell us how many nations sided with America in the war in Afghanistan. Pakistan also sided with the United States, but Pakistan did not send forces. But Pakistan provided other support, intelligence support, logistics support, or flight permissions, logistic routes, all those stuff. But Korean War is the first war in which the UN played a role. The UN, United Nations, actually physically played a role. Okay, 16 countries, those allied to the US, like Great Britain and other, Turkey, actually sent soldiers to fight the Korean War. And 41 sent equipment or aid for the UN forces. India sent an airborne ambulance battalion. They were airdropped.
ये बहुत फारे गए थे।
इंडियंस बहुत तो नहीं मारे गए थे, इंडियंस मारे गए थे।
मैं कह रही फारे गए बहुत इंडिया।
हाँ नहीं, फारिग नहीं, it's interesting because it is that point in time that they were trying to become or had become a non-aligned nation, and their sympathies lay with the Soviet Union, but they sent an ambulance battalion, airborne. They were airdropped into. Pakistan was also asked to provide a brigade, and they said, we are going to equip you with all the equipment. And Pakistan at that time in its history was militarily ill-organized. The army was still trying to find its feet. It's fighting a war in Kashmir, and it did not have proper equipment. So it was a very lucrative offer that, okay, we'll equip one of the brigades, send it, and they can come back with all the equipment that we are going to give you. Pakistan refused because Pakistan wanted some kind of security assurances which the United States did not give Pakistan. But Pakistan did benefit from, Pakistan sent some wheat as humanitarian aid, and Pakistan did benefit from the Korean War because Pakistan was able to sell a lot of jute bags. Jute was Pakistan's primary export at that time. So you needed jute bags for carrying stuff, for sandbags, for other things. So Pakistan did benefit from the war economy generated by the Korean War. China fought on the side of North Korea, and the Soviet Union sent them military equipment. The US sent about 90% of the troops in aid of South Korea. This was the kind of support that the South Koreans received. So US forces in South Korea, sorry for the typo, it was established, the US forces in Korea, USFK, was established in 1957, July 1, 1957, part of the Indo-Pacific, now it's part of the Indo-Pacific Command, Indo-Pacific Command. Previously it was called the Pacific Command, now they call it Indo-Pacific Command to humor the Indians. Indo-Pacific Command, it's not PACOM anymore, it's the Indo-Pacific Command. US Indo-PACOM, okay. Major elements include US 8th Army, United States Air Force Korea, 7th Air Force, US Naval Forces in Korea, US Marine Force Korea, Special Operations Command Korea. Special operations are usually special forces, commandos, etc. Okay, new US forces in Korea and UN command headquarters have been relocated to Camp Humphrey here from Seoul. Okay, previously they were located in Seoul. Where is Seoul? Can you see Seoul?
Yeah.
No, somewhere here.
Yeah. Somewhere near the stars.
On June 29, 2018, their current commander is General Robert B. Abrams. Total manpower 23,468 American soldiers, sailors, airmen and marines in South Korea. US force in South Korea are a major presence in the region. 23,000, okay, nearly 24,000, okay. Major presence in the region and a key manifestation of the US government's aim to rebalance towards the Asia Pacific. The US, it's a stated policy of the US, they want to rebalance towards Asia Pacific. So something about the North Korean Kim dynasty. It's called the Mount Paektu bloodline, a 3-generation lineage descending from the country's first leader, Kim Il-sung. So this is the first leader, Kim Il-sung, 1917 to 1994. He was also, or is still referred to as the great leader. So they believe in personality cults, the North Korean. Their leadership revolves around personality cults, and this is the Kim dynasty or the Mount Paektu bloodline. In 1948, Kim came to rule North Korea after the end of Japanese control in 1945, after the region had been split. Okay, he began the Korean War in 1915, an attempt to reunify the entire peninsula. You have to read a lot to agree to this statement or disagree with this statement, but he thought that Kim Il-sung, that we could reunite both Koreas. In the 1980s, Kim developed a cult of personality closely tied to their state philosophy of Juche, socialist ideology of self-reliance. And we talked about the Mao's ideology of self-reliance also. So this is their state ideology. In 2013, Clause 2 of the Article 10 of the new edited 10 Principles for the Establishment of a Monolithic Ideological System states that the party and revolution must be carried eternally by the, here I've written Paektu and here is Baekdu. One of the spellings is wrong. Baekdu, both may be correct, one of them might be wrong. So Baekdu is easier to pronounce. So this was the second Kim Jong-il, 41-2011. He was called the Dare Leader, and this is Kim Jong-un, 1984, born 1984, Dare respected leader.
He was born on 8th January
8th of January.
1984.
You were born on the same date?
My brother was
Your brother was born on the same day. Good, good. So does he have the similar traits as Kim Jong-un? Is he fat? Is he squat?
He's asking, is he
Sorry?
fat?
No, he is not fat. He's very much proud of that. North Korea में उसकी birthday वाले दिन छुट्टी होती है.
Okay, good. Please, next. So this is the South Korean leadership, ladies and gentlemen. Since the establishment of the government of the Republic of Korea in 1948, 12 presidents have served 19 terms. So some of them must have been re-elected. The president is the country's head of state as well as the head of government. The president is also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and president is elected for a 5-year term. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you over here that many or some of the presidents that Korea had were military generals, and they had been under martial laws also. But their progress has been very good as compared to South Korea. So this is Moon Jae-in, born 1953, former human rights lawyer and chief of staff to the then president Roh Moo-hyun, assumed post of the president of South Korea on 10 May 2017. And before him was a lady, Park Chung-hee, and she was brought down on corruption charges, and she's languishing in jail. And she was the daughter of one of the former presidents who had also been a general in the Korean army. So difference between North and South Korea, that it will address your question over here. North Korea is a Stalinist state. It is governed by Stalinist principles, and South Korea is a capitalist state. North Korea is extremely poor. South Korea is a wealthy nation, as you yourself correctly pointed out. It's part of the G20 group of countries. North Korea's population is 25 million. This is slightly interesting, and the population of South Korea is 49 million, although this is slightly larger than South Korea.
Actually, sir, there was a famine in 1990s in North Korea where millions of people
Died. Eamon, I'm so glad you know so much about Korea. Have you been to Korea?
No.
But you have interest in Korea?
I read about that.
You read about it. Good, very good. Life expectancy is 69 years. It's still high by our standards. I think life expectancy in Pakistan is 65 years or 62, something, early 60s. So they still, despite being very poor, their life expectancy is 69 years. And the life expectancy in South Korea is 79 years. One thing common in both countries is high suicide rate. So suicide is considered very honorable in these societies, in Japan and in Korea. Any other questions over here?
No, sir.
So there's this book, Why Nations Fail. It starts with
Yes.
that if you look at the map of North and South Korea at night from a satellite view, so you'll see North Korea like heavily, darkened, and they term it as dark nights of North Korea, while South Korea is all lighted up, and it shows that how there is this 4 kilometer width of that line, and how above that line it's all dark, and if you just take a look at South Korea, it's their economic progress and their development that is even visible at night from a satellite view, that how much they've progressed and how North Korea will still remain in the dark for the years to come.
Wonderful. Why Nations Fail is an excellent book, as Rubab pointed out, and it does point out cases of North and South Korea and also of United States of America and Mexico. It says the border runs through villages, and if you go to Mexico, they are poor. If you go to United States of America, it's rich. And there are two authors of the book, and their thesis is that in the United States of America, there's more accountability. They can hold their leaders accountable. That's not the case in Mexico. That is one of the points that they make, the authors make. But it's a very, very, very interesting book. And in that book, he also says, they also say that on the Mexican side also, people in the split villages are Europeans basically. They are not natives, they are not Hispanics. They can be Hispanics, they can be Latin speaking, Spanish speaking, but they are Europeans. But it's so different. So this is an enigma, you see. Korea is really an enigma. They are same people, the same DNA. And one is a wealthy nation, the other is a poor nation. It's an enigma. You may say that it's an enigma in South Asia also. So this is some facts and figures that you might find interesting. This is slightly dated population 2013. So here they give this population, okay, 25 million, and this is almost 50 million. And this is the life expectancy, okay, 69, 79. And this is the GDP, 1800, and their South Korean is 32,400. And this is the press freedom index, 178, 50. And this is the infant mortality rate, 26 children die mortality rate. That could also be one reason of their low population. More children die at the time of birth in North Korea compared to lesser number of children dying in South Korea. And this is the internet users per 100 people. So 81.5% of the South Koreans have access to internet, and only 0.1%. And this may include the Kim's immediate family, I presume. And this is the net official development assistance. I do not know how to decipher it. And this is the military spending, $8.21 billion compared to South Korea, $26.1 billion. But yet this North Korea is heavily militarized, and there the military comes first. They will first equip their military, and then they will spend on the people. And this is the active duty people, 1.19 million in North Korea, 0.65 million. So more defense expenditure, but lesser number of smaller standing army. Okay, and military expenditure 22.3% of the GDP. It's 2.8% of the GDP. 22.3% of the GDP is a huge amount. So I just wanted to tell you this policy, sunshine policy. There has been a pining within both Koreas that the split families should meet. Although this urge to reunite might be on the wane because the generation which was split up is dying out. But one would often see photographs of siblings in their 80s, octogenarians, brothers and sisters meeting and weeping because they had not met after the Korean War. So this thing might end because the new generation might not know anybody across the 38th parallel. So for them, South or North Korea might be a strange land, but for many people, it was at one time a lifetime desire to meet their brothers and sisters, and in some odd cases, parents also. Okay, so one time, this man Kim Dae-jung, and followed by Roh Moo-hyun, they crafted this policy which was called the Sunshine Policy, and the formal name of this policy was Comprehensive Engagement Policy towards North Korea, and it was first announced by this fellow Kim Dae-jung in 1998. It was aimed at loosening the containment on North Korea, embracing North Korea, and eventually making North Korean government to denuclearize itself. So they were following the philosophy of prosper thy neighbor. They wanted them to be an affluent society. They wanted them to give up on their nuclear program. So this was called the Sunshine Policy. The gist of Sunshine Policy was derived from Ostpolitik, or Eastern policy of Western Germany, West Germany, okay? And this policy became famous for normalization by West Germany towards East Germany, in which the West German government acknowledged East Germany not only as a normal and independent country, but also as a very close nation. West Germany gave them $57.6 billion for their economic revival or to prop them. So Sunshine Policy was based on following principles: no armed provocation by the North will be tolerated. Okay, so don't provoke us, but otherwise South will not attempt to absorb North in any way. The South actively seeks cooperation. So this was the policy. This is 1998. Towards the end of the 20th century, the South Korean presidents made an attempt to bring normalcy in their relationship, to reduce the tensions. Okay. Next, please. So now I would come on to, I think I'm jumping from one. So this is the agreed framework. Can you go forward? And I'll come back again to the, first if I'll tell you the nuclear facilities in North Korea. North Korea has an active nuclear program. They were signatories to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but they opted out of it in 2003 for security reasons. And they had, these are the various places where this is the most famous, Yongbyon, and the other places, Suncheon and Pyeongsan and Pyongyang and Pakcheon and Daegu. These are the areas where they have active nuclear facilities. So because the Americans are worried about the nuclear program and the South Koreans are worried about the nuclear programs, so can you go back to the agreed framework? So they said, okay, in 1994, we are going to have a treaty with you, and you give up your nuclear program, the facility at Yongbyon, where you were enriching fissile material, and we will give you in its place high-speed diesel oil. Okay. So this agreed framework was signed between the US and DPRK October 21, 1994. The objective was the freezing and replacement of North Korea's indigenous power plant and more nuclear proliferation resistant light water. And they said, instead of this, we'll give you light water reactors, power plants, and step by step you normalize your relationship. Implementation of the agreement was troubled from the start, but its key elements were being implemented until it broke down in 2003. So they were giving them high-speed diesel oil for their energy needs. Korea is a cold place. They need energy. They need electricity. They need. Eamon just told us that north of the 38th parallel, it's all darkness because they do not have enough electricity over there. So they were. I think I should have added the exact tonnage of high-speed diesel oil that they were giving to North Korea. But both of them did not keep their promises. Okay, so this actually broke down this agreed framework. So this is an important landmark in the efforts by North Korea or the United States to actually normalize the situation. Yes, please, Ubrabab.
There is going to be the summit tomorrow in which Trump and Kim Jong-un are going to meet, and there's a very high chance that they'll end their so-called war in that particular meeting, and they'll declare it to the world that yes, we are at peace with each other.
I'm glad that you brought it out. I will allude to it further in my presentation. I would just like to add about the Kaesong Industrial Complex. This is an industrial complex in South Korea. It's near the border, near the demilitarized zone, and labor force from South Korea used to come every day to work there, produce stuff, and go back. So this is one of the conference building wages that had been included to reduce tensions and promote harmonious relationship. So as students of peace and conflict studies, you should know what kind of conference building wages are there.
It's the kind that Pakistan and Afghanistan are having. Like the Afghani children come to Pakistan for schooling and
Right. So
it's something of that sort.
Right. So these are conference building wages, and if you are employed by the government, or if you are employed by the UN, then you are told to come up with some novel ideas. So this is one novel idea. Have a industrial state where people from other side can come over and they can participate in some useful economic activity. So right now, Pakistan and India tensions are very high. I do not know how we can reduce those tensions. So as students of peace and conflict studies, you must agitate your minds of what can be done to reduce tensions, because war is not going to benefit anybody, and not India at all. So 2003, North Korea opted out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and they have carried out so far 6 nuclear tests, okay, and each one has had the greater yield, okay, 4.3, 6.3 kilotons or whatever. So September 17 was the last time that they have actually equated this with quake magnitudes. That how much did it appear on the Richter scale? Okay. Usually, when you monitor nuclear explosions, there are sensitive equipment which is there, which can also monitor earthquakes. So when you find unusual activity, either it's an earthquake or it's a nuclear explosion. So this is how so 6.3 on the Richter scale, which is it's quite a large explosion. Okay, so North Korea has a very extensive missile program, a very elaborate missile program. Okay, and this is the title of the leaders who were there: 1984, Kim Il Sung, Kim Jong Il, 94 to 2011, and Kim Jong Un. So you see a spike in missile tests. Okay, and these are the names of the various missiles that they have been test firing, and this is a very Taepodong-1 is something which is a very famous missile. They also have cruise missiles, so they have been firing, and they claim that they can even reach mainland USA. That's what they've been claiming. They say they can target Japan, they can target Guam. And that, yes, the islands that I was asking you, nobody replied to me. They're, I think, Chagos Islands, yeah. Chagos Archipelago, and they have Diego Garcia over there. Wonderful, Rabab. Thank you very much. Chagos Archipelago, and they have Diego Garcia there. And Diego Garcia was one island which the Brits handed over to the US to establish their military base over there. So the Mauritians want that back, and the UN actually, the International Court of Justice actually decided in the favor of the Mauritians. They said it belongs to them, so the Brits should clear out. So anyway, we were talking about Guam. So these were in 1945. This was a little boy it was used in Hiroshima by the Americans, 15 kilotons. Fat Man in Nagasaki, 22 kilotons. And North Koreans, 0.5 to 1 kiloton in 2006, 2 to 4 kilotons 2009, 2013 6 to 9 kilotons, this 2016 10 kilotons, so 100 kilotons, okay. And the US has Trident submarine launch ballistic missiles, 455 kilotons. They did not test it, but they're just trying to show that we have got bigger nuclear warheads than you. So this is a sort of roadmap, or I would say map of how they have been testing their nuclear warheads. So this is something where the Americans say North Korean strategic nuclear threat. So this is North Korea, and this is the kind of reach that they have. So they can, you see, these are smaller circles, smaller radius, and then the radius it increases, the range increases. You see, mainland now their missiles cover almost the entire length and breadth of mainland USA. And I was reading somewhere that their missiles would, if they fire them, they will be actually overflying Canada and landing in United States of America. So these are the various missiles that they have. Okay, so this shows the length of the missiles, and they can carry. This is obviously this is 2-stage rocket, 2 or 3-stage rocket. So this is again, this is something I picked up from the net, and this gives some background of the conflict, what China wants, what North Korea wants, what Japan wants. Japan also comes in their missile range because Japan is nearest, and USA also comes in their range, and South Korea obviously comes in its range. So this is their missile policy, to keep these countries which they consider a threat. And here somewhere is the Guam Island. So they also, Guam Island is an island where the Americans have their military base, from where they can fly their reconnaissance planes. Here we have Guam, you see. Here we have Guam. Here is Japan. So here is Pyongyang, the North Korean capital. And this is Hawaii, Alaska, USA. So 10,000 kilometers range. So they have missiles which have ranges more than 10,000 kilometers. US military bases and territories potentially in range of missiles. So South Korean nuclear policy depends on US extended nuclear deterrence. The US provides its nuclear cover, and till a very long time the United States had actually based their nuclear tipped missiles in South Korea. And South Korea also played host to one of Obama's nuclear summits in Seoul. Okay, there were 4 nuclear summits which were organized during the presidency of Obama during his watch, and one of them was in Seoul. Okay, South Korea mainly invests in nuclear reactors, not in nuclear weapons. 23 reactors provide about 1/3 of South Korea's electricity from 22 gigawatt, I don't know, GWE of plant. So if South Korea is well lit up, one reason is that they have these nuclear power plants. South Korea is among the world's most prominent nuclear energy countries and exports its technology widely. Okay, so they produce nuclear reactors, and they sell their nuclear reactors. So that is where they want to earn the money. It's currently involved in building of 4 nuclear reactors in the UAE under a $20 billion contract. So they are investing in UAE, giving them nuclear reactors. Okay, so the Gulf countries are also becoming nuclearized. When you make a nuclear reactor, if there aren't proper safeguards, the nuclear fuel can be diverted to making nuclear weapons. Okay. Nuclear energy has been a strategic priority for South Korea, but the new president elected in 2017 is aiming to phase it out over some 45 years. So the new president, Moon was his name? Moon Jae-in. I do not know how to. Moon Jae-in?
Yes, sir.
She is the newscaster. She knows properly how to pronounce. South Korea-US relationship. Okay, US fought on the side of UN-sponsored side in the Korean War. We know about it, 1950-53. I know you will not forget it now. Okay. I think this should be US helped establish the modern state of South Korea. Like the Marshall Plan, they also invested in South Korea. The Americans gave money to Japan, they gave money to Germany, they gave money to France, they gave money to Britain, and they also helped us. South Korea is a major non-NATO ally, and we also had this dubious title. The Americans now want to take it back. Currently, 4 factors shape the US-South Korean alliance. Challenges posed by North Korea, especially the nuclear threat, China's rising influence in Northeast Asia, South Korea's transformation into one of the largest leading economies with a strong export base, South Koreans' leaders' advantage of using their middle pass status to play a global role. So this is why the US is investing in South Korea, and that's why they want to remain in South Korea. So we know that they have about 23,500 troops deployed in South Korea. Okay. Then there was in 2017, once Trump moved into White House, both Trump and Kim traded personal insults, and sometimes the words that the taunts that they were making, it seemed childish. They petty. One of them was Trump called him little rocket man, fat man, rocket man, and he was calling him a dotard. Somebody who's gone berserk. Dotard is somebody who's got senile, old man, lost his marbles, something like that. So these were the tweets that he was making. Why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old when I would never call him short and fat?
Oh, well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen.
Someday that will happen. This is happening. This is happening. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that nuclear button is on his desk all the times. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform that I too have a nuclear button, but it is much bigger and more powerful one, and my button works. So this was the kind of nonsense that they were exchanging, and sometimes it amazes you what has international statesmanship come to.
Foreign policy is being done on Twitter.
Twitter, no, absolutely.
Okay.
So again, this was the kind of thing that they were daily insults. They were trading daily insults in August 2017.
We met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
Yeah. So
So my point is that I don't understand why at times US feels threatened by they have like movies like London Has Fallen, Olympus Has Fallen, which are basically based on the North Korean people from North Korea. They come on visits to White House, and then they sort of उसको hijack कर लेते हैं White House को, and then the US. Why are they so like? It's something like India and Pakistan, that India is obsessed with Pakistan. So the same thing goes for US. US is obsessed with North Korea. North Korea is a much poorer country, maybe powerful, but a poor country. So why is it a threat? Why is it even a threat? I don't
see, because North Korea was standing up to them, despite its abject poverty, it was standing up to it, and that's why they don't want anybody to stand up to anybody. There was a movie called the.
If they were standing,
So you can. So they were making missiles. They were test firing missiles. The missiles would be going across Japan, falling into the Sea of Japan.
US is quite very much stronger than North Korea. तो मेरे वाली बात, why is it even a threat? बना रहे थे, it's okay, पूरी दुनिया बना रही है missiles.
Sometimes it pays to demonize countries. You see, America is an international power, is a superpower, so it has made a lot of threats for itself, small threats, big threats. Daesh is a threat, Al-Qaeda is a threat, Taliban is a threat. Not paranoid. There's a method to the madness. No. They do it some things according to plan. And there were other photographs also. They exchanging. What do you do? Fist bumps. Fist bumps. Bombs? Bumps. Fist bumps. That means that we are friends. Okay. Fist bumps. Okay. So now he says he loves. Trump says I love Kim. So there must be something. Some method to the madness. One day you are trading insults, calling each other by very, very bad names, and the other day you are embracing each other, fist bumping each other or whatever.
The dotard and the rocket.
Rocket man, but now now they say I love him.
Yeah.
This is the kind of person Trump can be, and this is the kind of person Kim Jong-un can be.
Yeah.
Or this is the kind of person one can be when they're fully threatened from both sides equally.
Perhaps, yeah, might be right. So there are 2 rounds of talks. First round took place in Singapore, 12 June 2018, and the other will be held this week, tomorrow, Rubab? Tomorrow. 28th. I know.
It says Wednesday on the Times magazine.
So Wednesday is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it will take place tomorrow in Hanoi. Okay, and Hanoi, ladies and gentlemen, is the capital of Vietnam, and this is the place from where the Americans beat a very humiliating and hasty retreat, because the American helicopter, last American helicopter, took off from the rooftop of the American embassy in Hanoi, which was then South Vietnam, because then Vietnam was also divided between North and South, and there are images, and I have seen a Broadway show in which they actually showed the helicopter lifting off and people actually grappling for the skid boards of the helicopter, last helicopter departing Vietnam. But interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that Vietnam now is an emerging country. It is on the fast track of economic recovery. It is a country with which the United States of America would like to do business. Imagine, they were the worst of enemies. Once upon a time, and they actually suffered a humiliating defeat. I hope it does not happen in Afghanistan. I hope we put our act together before that happens, and we also go forward. Somehow, if we can tell the hawks in India to behave themselves, because if they continue to beat the drums of war, we will forever be investing money in our defense forces. Okay, so now we have an external threat and we have an internal threat. So this happened on 12th of June at Capella Hotel, Sentosa, Singapore. The joint statement said, agreed to security guarantees for North Korea, new peaceful relations, the denuclearization of Korean Peninsula, recovery of soldiers remains. This is important for the US. Follow-up negotiations between high-level officials. So there was a setback after this. They could not build upon the initial euphoria of the talks that took place in Sentosa.
They weren't very productive as well.
Sorry?
They weren't very productive.
They were. They said we are going to give you security guarantees. We will have new peaceful relationship, and we would like you to denuclearize. Give us the remains of our soldiers who were lost in the Korean War. So this was it's a meaningful talks. They could have built upon it, but they could not. But again, they are meeting. You see, second round Vietnam summit, and Trump promises to make North Korea rich if it denuclearizes. Then he's promised, yeah, I'll make you rich.
At the cost of what?
To denuclearize it. If you give up your nuclear weapons, I'm going to make you rich. You see, you must see how the North Koreans also play up on the nuclear threat that they have. When they started their nuclear program, they said, okay, we are going to give up our Yongbyon nuclear power plant if you give us so many tons of high-speed diesel oil. That was the agreed framework.
Even they are asking to remove its bases from South Korea as well.
Sorry?
North Korea is demanding that US should remove its bases from South Korea.
Yeah. That can happen, but I will talk about that in a while. But first of all, let's get over with this. So these are the Kim-Trump talks, and which Rubab also mentioned in the earlier part of my lecture. And lo and behold, Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
What, is this true?
Yeah, he is.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know?
By a person, by a person no less than the Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Abe. And we all know that Obama was also given a peace prize in the first year of his presidency. because they thought that he is going to make this world a non-nuclear world. And this prize is being given to him. So in the last semester, I gave a lecture to my students in which I told them that Nobel Peace Prize and many other prizes are often political in nature.
So they're a hoax.
Sorry?
They're a hoax.
The one given
They're hoax?
Indian president for Nishan-e-Pakistan.
Indian president?
Yes, Prime Minister Desai.
Prime Minister?
He was Prime Minister of
Yeah,
President
Morarji
of
Desai.
Pakistan.
Morarji Desai.
Yes.
So yeah, they have given
Why
the.
would we give our highest civil award to
There must be some reason to it. Find out what was the reason. Why did we give this highest award to?
for democracy wave in India and like something like that for support.
Find out why was it, and it was given by no less a person than General Ziaul Haq.
Even after the Singapore talks,
Let her say something. I'll come to you, ladies and Aisha, please, one at a time. Yes, Shiza, please.
so just I think 2 slides back we were watching how productive the Singapore talks were. Even after that, Kim Jong-un later on said we're not ready to denuclearize but not produce more weapons.
Yeah.
So I think we're never seeing.
So you can say that there might be a halt in production. There might be some kind of treaty. He might place his weapons under safeguards, or we might return to NPT, things of that sort. So immediately denuclearizing. Yes, please go ahead, Sadra. You have something in your mind.
No, I just wanted to say that there was no way that North Korea is going to denuclearize because A, they're taking advantage of how volatile Trump's leadership is. Plus, the moment the Republicans go out of office, and maybe when the Democrats come in, everything's going to backtrack.
Yeah.
So if these questions come in your examination, ladies and gentlemen, you ought to be prepared. And you should quote from the readings that I sent you. Please do not ignore the readings. I take a lot of effort in sending you the readings, okay? Would the two Koreas reunite? No?
They hardly, like they're not very willing even in the Winter Olympics or games when they have to.
Because they both had a meeting, summit, inter-Korean summit last June, last year, and they are trying to unite, and even they are planning to jointly host the 2032 Olympics together.
And in the Winter Olympics, as Shiza was saying, they sent in a joint team also.
Under unified peninsula flag.
And a unified peninsula flag. So there are hopes. I do not know whether they will. So if you are better analyst than I am, then you can come with a good answer. Okay. Would the U.S. forces leave South Korea?
No.
Never.
No.
5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Never.
If it's supposed to leave South Korea, why is it making India and ally in South Asia? I mean, it's doing everything.
Okay. Good argument by Sarfraz. You say if they are leaving Korea, then why are they trying to make India an ally in the Indo-Pacific zone? So they have a number of allies. They have they have Australia. They have got New Zealand. They have got Singapore. Singapore is also a major ally. Would there be peace in Korea, ladies and gentlemen?
Temporary.
So, Bushra, जोर से बोलिएगा.
There can be peace, negative peace, but
In 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years. Raksha.
If they do reunite, then yes, possibility.
Hadika.
Sir, maybe in a decade or two.
A decade or two. And what is the basis of your long-term optimism?
Sir, यही ना कि if the North Korea and South Korea maintain the hegemony, then they can be. Have two countries with starkly different ideologies reunited in the recent past?
But they're making effort.
No, please answer my question.
Sorry?
Have any two countries reunited, divided countries reunited, countries with starkly opposing ideologies reunited in the recent past?
Sir, never. They only changed their names later on.
Shiza, I don't agree with you. Two Germanys united. I witnessed that reunification. I was there. Two Germanys reunited, and they were following different ideologies. One was following capitalist ideology, and the DDR, the democratic German Republic was following a communist ideology. The two states reunited, and they are happily reunited. And that happened on 3rd of October, which happened to be my daughter's birthday. So forever the Germans keep celebrating my daughter's birthday. Like the North Koreans celebrate his brother's birthday.
Brother's birthday.
Sorry? Anything? Yes. So yes, countries can reunite.
Sir, but I think the trouble in that example, like the problem.
Yes, I know that the examples have a particular environment and particular time frame, everything.
From that, East Germany was being looked after by the USSR. So they had a puppet government that was being looked after by the USSR. However, in the case of North Korea, South Korea,
North Korea is being looked after by China. South Korea.
technically, for the case of North Korea especially, the leader is in power. That wasn't the case for East Germany.
No. Honecker was a very powerful Secretary General. Honecker was a very similarly, this West Germans were also, you see, they had permanent American troops deployed there. They still have nuclear missiles deployed in Germany, and it's exactly similar circumstances for American forces in West Germany, American support. The other side, the Soviets were behind the East Germans.
The USSR fell apart throughout the 90s.
Yes, they fell apart. So if the United States fall apart,
That wouldn't affect South Korea to that extent, would it?
but this is a hypothetical question. If it comes in your examination, you better come up prepared with good arguments. Okay. So please think about these things. So, questions, ladies and gentlemen, before we. Daraksha, you are wincing. You are squinting your eyes.
It's not a question. I just think that if they reunite, then South Korea is economically wealthy and North Korea has a nuclear technology. It will be very interesting.
It happened in case of West Germany and East Germany. You see, the economic reunion took place overnight. The West German government said that one D-Mark, Deutschmark, is going to be one Ostmark, whereas there was a huge difference between the money value of the two countries, and they even gave money to people who were coming over to, as the wall was breaking down, they were giving them gifts, money gifts. Just come over to us. They paid huge amounts of money in reunifying East Germany. According to their estimates, East Germany was far behind them. Although I visited East Germany in that time, I was undergoing military training. I was attending the staff college course over there. And that time we visited East Germany, and they actually had the National Volksarmee still in place. They still have the Soviet barracks over there. But they paid huge amounts, and the two Germanys have reunited, although some East Germans still think of East Germany as good times, because East Germany had its benefits. The communist system has its benefits. The communist government looks after its citizens in a very good way. They make sure that everybody have a house, everybody has income, everybody is safe and secure. The capitalist system can be very, very chaotic. Everybody is fending for himself or herself, and if you don't have money, the state may or may not look after you. So some older generation East Germans still look back wistfully at the good times that they had under the East German government, under the DDR government. And if you get time to watch a movie, a very interesting movie, it's called Goodbye Mr. Lennon. It is a movie in which there is a woman who goes into coma, and when she wakes up, it's West Germany. And she was high up on the Politburo, or she was an apparatchik, a member of good standing of the Communist Party. And then their children, her children, had to create a make-believe world for her, in which she doesn't see the advertisements of Coca-Cola, or she still hears the patriotic songs sung by pioneers wearing the uniform of East German Scouts. So, because she believed that system was good. If you are flourishing in that system, For you, it's a good system.
She wakes up after reunification.
She wakes up after. It's an very, very, very interesting movie. If you get a chance, it comes with subtitles, but do watch it. Goodbye, Mr. Lennon. Yes. Vietnam is slightly different. Vietnam, North Vietnam, South Vietnam, the US forces actually lost. So they could not, they were beaten out, they were thrown out. So they had a puppet government in North Vietnam. So it fell by default. Yes, that's one example. Another example, it reunited. That's another example. You could, read up about it. North Vietnam and South Vietnam, how did they reunify? That was a victory of communism. Okay, the North Koreans won here. North Vietnamese won. South Koreans were defeated. So they had a puppet government, and there's a famous anecdote in which there is some dictator in South Korea, a military general, and somebody told Johnson that he's a dictator, and he said yes, but he's beg your pardon, he's our son of a bitch. Yeah, he's a bad person, but he's ours. So there are examples in which countries can reunite. So study those examples. And Korea is an enigma in many ways. But then East Germany and West Germany also had, East Germany was a country which was dominated by the party. The intelligence agencies were very, very strong. They would monitor and surveil everybody. Wife was reporting on the husband was reporting on the wife, and children were reporting on the parents. So it was a controlled society. But when they reunited, they became one, and they were quick to pick up the capitalist habits. They had problems, but there must be problems. But reunification could be painful for some people, but they did reunite, and they are flourishing. Germany is still one of the leading economies of the world. I think 5th largest economy. So Vietnam is becoming a big economy. The Americans want to do business with them. They're holding, the fact that they're holding a summit meeting there shows that the importance that it is gaining in the world affairs. Vietnam. So any other question? Yes, Aisha? You are uncharacteristically quiet this morning. No questions? Yeah, anybody else? Natasha? Maria? Yes, please.
North Korea and South Korea do eventually reunite. Will the US be out of this?
You tell me. I'm asking you that question.
I think
The US would what?
I think they will be out.
They'll be out.
मेरा ये point है कि it is not in US के personal interest to let the two countries join.
Okay.
Why? Because South Korea, as you said, it is a strong, very strong country, South Korea. And if
Economically,
and North Korea is militarily or nuclear-wise a very strong country. If they both unite, it's not going to result well for US. So I don't think it's in the personal interests of US. Maybe अगर वो करते भी हैं, like North Korea के साथ भी अच्छे अपने ties कर लेते हैं या अपने relations better कर लेते हैं, but I don't think they would let the two countries like unite. That is what my point of view is.
US can get benefited from their reunion as well, because you mentioned that one is economically very strong and other is militarily, so they can get benefit.
But then again, we cannot ignore the ties North Korea has with China.
China, exactly.
Exactly.
Wait करेगा जब तक China.
China.
but what does China want? China wants chaos in the region, or China wants
It
stability?
wants peace and stability. But the point is, we don't know. You never know.
At the cost of what?
Yeah,
At the cost of?
What?
at the cost of.
What?
You tell us. You tell us.
Co-
This is what I'm saying. That we don't
Connectivity.
know what want.
They have the Belt Road Initiative. They want the world to be connected. They want trade, commerce. They want the old Silk Route to be revived. So it is not in the Chinese interest that Pakistan and India fight. It's not in the Chinese interest that North Korea and South Korea fight. Although Kim doesn't often listen to China, but he does visit them quite often in train. And even he's gone on a train to Hanoi.
So, but do we think China is gonna boycott its economic ties with India because they are.
No, they are not. They are not going to cut off. They want the trade ties with India to flourish actually. But if there is war in the region, then there will be problem.
That's my point. Then why are we always so much optimistic that yes, China is there? China is there?
Nobody is for you. Sarfraz, you have to fend for yourself. You have to look. You have to very introspective. You must find out actually what are the benefits, kind of benefits are there for you as a nation. So national interest should come first. So if somebody comes and offers you a largesse of $20 billion, again you must be very careful. What does this entail for you? That is my point. Ji, Ali Abasa, any point? No point? So I was going to ask Aisha, where she left very strategically at the last moment because she was also quiet. Anybody else who has not spoken of Maria?
Rafia is very.
Rafia does not speak up, so I do not remember her name. So Maria has not come, and Mariam has also not come. No, Mariam is there. Okay, Mariam, yes. Sorry, Rafia, any question? Oh, you all clear? Yes. You better get good marks. Okay, if you don't, then don't blame me. You did not ask me any question. Natasha. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.